So what we do in our training normally is go through the entire process of evaluations. So from setting the stage, all kinds of preparatory work that needs to be done before you can even commission or start evaluating, from the terms of reference to selecting the right evaluators, thinking of the methodologies that you want to include. And then we have the inception phase, really structuring your evaluation, making sure expectations are managed. Moving into data collection, whether that's online or in the countries where the projects are being implemented. Data analysis is a very important phase we also cover in our training. And then we move to sense making and as well as reporting. And last but not least, the utilization. So we really hope that evaluations lead to steering, communicating, and learning. So this is the entire process that we go through during our course as well. And now in this webinar, we give you a short hint of the inception phase and the sense making. So Antonio, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. We can move to the next slide. Okay, inception phase. Why did we think that it was important to talk about inception? Because we think it's a quite essential element of an evaluation process. And I put this slide just not as a philosophical question, but more of a reflection. Inception can go really well, or it can be a misconception. The evaluator is not really understanding what the program is about, that they need to evaluate, or not understanding what the context is about. And so for us, it's a very essential step. And I will show you in the next slide why we think that is. Yes. Okay, so I was thinking, let me use a metaphor to talk about inception. And so I thought maybe we can consider evaluators as blacksmiths. We have clients and we are asked to do a certain work. And we come to the client with our own expertise. We come with the experience because we have done evaluations before. And we also come with all the tools and methodologies that we can use depending on the kind of evaluation that we need to do. And then the client asks us, okay, you need to open this door. And after the door, there's something that you need to learn about. And that will be the program. So the blacksmith, we need to work on the key. We need to create the key to get through the door and see what's after the door. And for me, that's what the inception is about. We need to get the information about the program or the policy or the partnership that we are evaluating. We need to get the contacts because we will need the contact later when we do the data collection. And also we need to manage expectations with the client. What kind of service do they want? What can we offer as evaluators and what we cannot offer as evaluators? And then hopefully if the inception goes well, then we get to data collection and reporting with a high quality deliverable, meaning the report is well contextualized and tools are well developed. The data collection will also go better because we will have contextualized the key informed interview guides, for example, or focus group discussion guides or questionnaires in general, well adapted to the program. And also, as the title of our webinar is, we will make sure that the evaluation is useful and learning oriented, especially for the client. That is the main goal for us when we do evaluation. So I just also wanted to give two examples of a personal experience. As I said before, when I introduced myself, I used to work on the other side. So I used to manage evaluations from the client perspective. And I remember I had this evaluation that I had to manage, for which the inception phase was really not successful. And you see on the left the three main reasons why the inception didn't go well. So we really didn't have a lot of contacts with evaluators during the inception. We never heard from them really. So we were not really sure what was the work that evaluators were doing. And then when we got the report, we saw that actually the understanding of the program was quite poor. It looked like the evaluators didn't really do enough desk review or research about our work. And that showed both in the content of the report, but also in the guides. which were really not contextualized. So for those that are already evaluators, you know that you have the evaluation matrix and that you can develop some more specific and detailed interview guides. The two were quite similar. And then what happened in reality is then during data collection, they could not really get the information they needed because the guides were not well adapted. So that was one of the experiences I had. Then when I came on this side, I tried to learn from what I didn't like when I was a client. And I thought, okay, let's really establish a good relationship with the client from the start. So meaning you sign the contract, you start with Inception, you need to make sure that the client knows what you're working on. And also you need to manage the expectations, as I said. So it's good to have that constant relationship with the client. And what we did is that we formed this evaluation reference group, which the client didn't really thought about. But we thought with the evaluation reference group, we make sure that they are basically accompany us throughout all the evaluation process. And they also can give their perspective and opinions on whatever methodology we are proposing and all the tools that we developed. During the inception, we also made sure that we talk to some of the people that are managing the program, because you can read documents, but until you actually talk to people and get their perspective and also their main bottlenecks and successes, you don't really get a very good understanding of what the program is. So that for me was very important, and we try to do that during inception for all the evaluations, because it really enhances the understanding of what the program is. And then lastly, the desk review it's really important that you start doing that during inception, because it really gives you a better understanding. So both talking to people, but also reading what you're provided with. Some clients are really well organized. They provide you with a list of documents already when you sign the contract. So the recommendation would be really make use of them, because then it shows when you do data collection, and it shows with the final deliverable as well. So moving on to the last lesson learned for this inception phase. So really, for me, the main message is that it's a phase that doesn't have to be undervalued, because as I said, it sets the tone for the evaluation. If you do it well, if you get the contacts properly, and you do your desk review and you talk to people, it really sets the tone for the evaluation. You're making sure that the evaluation is much better tailored to the needs of the client. As I said, do your research. So desk review is extremely important. You will do a more in-depth review usually later on during the collection, but the sooner you start, the better it is. Make it participatory, meaning try to have that constant relationship with the client. I think the clients generally appreciate when evaluators are being communicative and they know what is going on. Don't assume that the client knows. It's always good to have that relationship. And also, as I said, manage expectations. Sometimes clients want a certain deliverable, but you know from your experience and expertise that some of the things are not manageable, or they're not realistic, or maybe you want to propose something else that won't necessarily need a TOR. All those conversations you can have during inceptions, because that's when you really try to tailor the evaluation methodology and approach as much as possible. And so if you do all this, the more you do it, the more you anticipate problems that might arise during data collection, because the guides were not well developed, or because expectations were not managed, and all the different elements that I already mentioned. So these are the main lessons learned that we can get from a very quick introduction about the inception. One question that is for you, out of these, which one would be the one for you that would be the main takeaway, the main lesson learned that from your experience would be really something that we need to take care of during inception phase? You can comment in the chat below, and then if you have questions, we can come back to you later on. Great. So I'll pass it over to Hilde for the sense-making phase.
I'm not sure how many people have had experience with sense making, but at MDF we consider sense making as a a common practice in evaluations. It's a method that allows you to jointly, together with program stakeholders, validate and reflect on the evaluation findings. And by doing that jointly, and not just in a report style, you really allow participants and stakeholders to explore the meaning of the findings and also then discuss what does it say about our program and about our performance of the program. So what does it look like? What does Sensemaking look like? So it takes place in a workshop setting, and whereas we used to do that mostly face-to-face, of course, due to circumstances, in recent years, this has much more become online or even hybrid form. So where there is a face-to-face part of it, but people are calling in online. So that kind of, makes it quite challenging to set it up in a right way. So the program stakeholders are the key participants of that sense-making workshop. And the planning, as you could see from that timeline of evaluations, is that it should really happen around the delivery of the draft report. Basically, after data analysis is finished, and often before you deliver the draft report, and it's based on the preliminary findings of the evaluation. Maybe next slide. Yes. So how is it done? How do we normally do it? The idea is that from the interviews, the desk review, from different data sources, you, together with your evaluation team, really do basically internal sense making first to get to your preliminary findings of the evaluation. And you share those findings plus some maybe strategic decision points as input for the workshop, for instance, through PowerPoint slides. So you give them to the participants already in advance, but you present those findings per evaluation criteria during the workshop. And while you're presenting, you ask for just clarifying questions, not yet discussion on let's say, the meaning of the findings, but just, are the findings clear? Did we clearly present them? And then after that, you have people working in groups, in breakout groups, if it's online, or just separate groups, if it's face-to-face, and you let them discuss findings along a few questions, which I will present in a moment, just to give you an idea of what type of questions you could ask. So you let people jointly reflect, maybe add things to those findings according to a set of questions, and then have another later, after a plenary group, you have another set of groups where you discuss the implications. So what does it mean? If these are the findings of the evaluation, what are we going to do with it? And what are clear, maybe low-hanging fruits on what to do in our future program? Next slide, please. So just a few examples of questions. Of course, you can tailor them depending on what you want to get out of the sense making. If there is no future program, then there's no use of going into that terrain. But mostly what you want to know is whether the participants find the findings recognizable. Are they common to their views of the program? And also, of course, very interestingly, which findings they did not expect, whether they were surprising, and especially if they were surprising, then why, and what does it say about the program then? And also which findings were missing. So it helps the participants kind of grasp the findings, and at the same time it helps you in trying to see where the findings fit with the expectations also. And also, if they're surprising, then why? So why, what does it say about the performance of the program? And it's then in the joint discussion on it that you let stakeholders also really reflect on that point. What do they think the findings say about the performance? Plus, and that is really often a second round of groups where you ask them, what does it mean for future programs? Future programs, or in the case of a midterm review, what does it mean for the remainder of the program? What can we still do with these findings in the last bit of the implementation time? So that's a bit the line of questioning that you do. And now, only now, I'm going to tell you why. So first of all, just a slide to give you a sense, not because I'm expecting you to read all these cards. I can't even read them, let alone you. This is a mural. This is just an example of a tool that we use during Sensemaking often when it's online. And it shows you a bit how we would go about it. We present the key findings and then we ask people to reflect, to add. Again, the questions, what surprised you and which findings stood out for you? So you let people really select and show where they find the priorities of the findings. And then you can ask, so what are the lessons learned? Let people add to that too. And then there will be another section in which it's a forward-looking exercise. So create recommendations. What does it mean? What do you see as concrete options to do to go from here? So now the last slide. We feel that Sensemaking makes evaluations more fair and transparent. You show people, not just at the end by means of a report, but already intermediary, you show people what you have found. You ask people to jointly reflect, so it's more participatory and interactive part of the evaluation process. So you allow stakeholders to jointly reflect and respond, not just to you as the evaluator, as the presenter of the findings, but also amongst each other. So through that group work, people already start also explaining certain things to each other, like, I see this finding, I recognize it, why don't you recognize it? And so there is discussion amongst themselves already, and not just a two-way communication between evaluator and program, so to say. So it lets participants add nuance and contextualize findings, especially, for instance, a big multi-country evaluation where a finding might apply to one context, but not to another. So it really gives space to kind of nuance and contextualize these findings further, which for an evaluator is great because you're still working on a draft report, and this type of feedback moment and nuance enriches the findings and the conclusions that you are going to present in the report. And because you let participants jointly explore what the findings mean for the future of the program, for maybe even more strategic future, it allows you to add to recommendations. They are recommendations grounded in a joint exploration of what can still happen and what spaces there is, which I think makes the recommendation so much more useful and actionable for the program after the evaluation ends. So these are a few points as why we do this, why we make sure that Sensemaking becomes part of every evaluation, and it tells you how we do it. So I'm hoping that I convinced all of you to take it on board as a method, because I think we feel very strongly that it helps both the evaluator, but also definitely program stakeholders that are being evaluated. Yeah.
Now, look, I would like to share with you our courses. So if you are interested to learn more about how to create a comprehensive evaluation with impact measurements, contribution analysis, or even randomized control trials, this is all part of our impact evaluation course, which is already starting very soon with our blended part. So we start online with our learning platform online, and then we have our face-to-face training in the Netherlands that will take place in May. So please, in the chat, I've now posted our course link online where you can find more information and also download the flyer. We also have other trainings like the monitoring, evaluation, and learning training. We have trainings in different countries, like the impact evaluation training also takes place in Ghana. The MEL training also takes place, I think, in Indonesia as well as in Kenya. And we have our French MEL training as well. So in Congo, in DRC Congo, So please check out what's most suitable to you. If you have any questions for us, please share, send us a message on our LinkedIn or follow us on Facebook. We will do many more of these webinars, so please keep an eye out, and you will always be able to reach out to us as well if you would like us to do a sense making for you. If you want us to evaluate some of your projects or programs, feel free to share your terms of references or link up with us directly. We are available for you, and we hope to see you in one of our trainings. I'm super excited to train this together with Hilda, Antonio, and Max. So yeah, looking forward to see you. Thank you so much for sharing your questions. Thank you for being here. Super great to see you all from all over the world. And yeah, see you soon.